Hi, my name is Adelaide. I am a poet, a tenant from Brazil, and I live in Berlin since 10 years, and I lived in 10 flats in this time. Now I have an Meldung, but I still don't have a contract on my name, so I live under the favor of a very good friend who is the Hauptvermieter, the Hauptperson in the contract. And this is why then I joined, among other things, this is also why I joined the Deutsche Wohnen und Co-Enteignen campaign. But I'll talk about that in a second. Just to give a little bit of context, the working group Right2TheCity for All is the English-speaking group of Deutsche Wohnen und Co-Enteignen campaign, the expropriation campaign, the campaign that plans to expropriate and socialize a lot of flats, 250,000, I think, no, Luis? Yes, danke schön. And this working group does basically what every other group in the campaign does, but in English. Of course, English is not the language that includes everyone, but it's a language that opens the door to a lot of people who cannot participate in German politics if you don't speak German or don't feel comfortable enough in speaking about politics in German, which is my case. For example, I speak German. It works for complaining and having fights in the job center, but it's not enough to do other stuff. So I feel very fine in the working group. And this is just a little context about the language, that we are very self-critical of it, that English is not the language for everybody, but it's the language for a lot of people. And so, why or how it was created? Before I give the introduction of how and why it was created, I would like to give a little overview of my own experience in the city as a non-white, but already lefty person who, when I came to Berlin in 2011, my first experience in the city was just in the Brazilian community. At that time, 2013, we had a lot of demonstrations back there against a lot of problems. And so this 2 years after I arrived, this is when I started connecting with a more politicized part of the Brazilian community, and this was my first participation, political activities here. And after that, then I joined the Alliance of Internationalist Feminists, who also helps organizing this international feminist 8th of March, and who was also a part of the coalition who tried to organize the Feministische Streik of 2018. And those are all groups that are not connected with an official Meldung or affiliation. So I could, because I have a lot of visa problems, now I'm fine. But I had a lot of visa problems, so I could not, for example, join a party because I didn't have an address and I didn't know if I would be able to stay here or not. But when my papers were organized and I was really relieved of that, then I joined the LINKE in Treptow Nord, where I'm part of, and started going to the meetings. And there, another experiences or problems or difficulties appeared. And then through the party, I arrived in the working group of the DW Stadthilfe, which is the organizing working group. And I'm listing those 4 groups that I was part of because each of them had challenges or problems even, or a lack of horizon that I was looking for. I'm not the ideal subject when we talk about organizing, because I was already politicized when I arrived in Berlin. So I come from a very leftist family, so it's not that, already a lefty, which is also a problem sometimes. So, but for example, in the Alliance of Internationalist Feminists and in the Brazilian group that was organizing against the putsch and against the prison of Lula, even though these groups are very important because you organize around the Latin problems, in Bloque Latino, you organize around Rojava, and you organize for Palestina freedom and so on, but still there is a detachment a lot of times between the work that we're doing for our country, for Amazon, etc., and the politics that's being done in the city of Berlin, the politics that's being talked on the Fernseher, the little television in the U-Bahn, that's being talked on television. So you feel like you are somehow connected in the life of the city, in this political ecology, but also at the same time you feel like you're out of it somehow. And at least for me, it lacked a lot of feeling that you are part of the, that you are exercising a little bit more of power. So the party for me was a way of dreaming of it, but then you join the party, you start going to the meetings, and you see that actually when you arrive as a not young, but as a young women and woman in comparison of the people affiliated in the party who are more or less 70 years old in Treptow Nord, and a non-white immigrant, then you also cannot do a lot because people treat you like a child and people don't ask you, hey, what do you think about Treptow? People ask like, oh, why is Bolsonaro in power? And I'm like, I have no idea. I live here since 11 years. I don't know. And then you would like to talk about and discuss about public lighting or the services that you have. Why cannot we have a way, Fahrradwege and so on? But you never feel like you are listened enough, and people keep inviting you to talk like, would you like to talk about feminism in Brazil? And it's like, well, no, thank you. And but collecting those experiences who are not only bad, they're also good because you build network and all of that. You start checking also what could be done a little bit better. And when I joined then the campaign through the party and arrived in the Stadthilfe, we started having conversations already in February 2020 about the campaign, because even though Berlin has 25% of people with immigration histories, the campaign was mainly by white Germans. And the first idea was like, we need to change that. And our first step was in the direction of we need diversity and we need representation because migrants also often face the worst living conditions. So it was not only to change the face, sort of say, of the campaign, but also bringing the knowledge of tenants who know who are like to be discriminated against. And this was the first imagination that we have. And recently I saw an interview with Rihanna, and she just launched her skincare line, and the person was like, whoa, why did you create that? And her answer was, because no brand offers the experience I wanted. And I brought that to this sentence to one of the preparation meetings when we were creating the Right2TheCity for all. It's like, let's create the experience that we imagine that people want to have in a political experience, especially those who was never part of any political thing before. How can we be as sexy as Rihanna in the political sense that people want to stay and, come again and feel gorgeous? So yeah, we started meeting in February 2020, and we created the Right2TheCity for all. One topic was to enable or encourage participation within Deutsche Wohnen for people with limited German skills or even the non-desire to speak in German, but could speak a little English. And it's also, again, to come back to the topic of the language, because the majority of us are not native speakers, then it's a very wrong English, which is everybody feels kind of good because no one expects you to, except for Phil that speaks perfect English. The other thing is enable or encourage participation within the city politics for people who never found a space where they could really shine in their political knowledge because of discrimination or patronizing queerphobia or sexism. And third, and this is probably one of the most important, if not the most important, to start opening the door for the participation of non-Germans when the flats are socialized and we have this AER, which is Anstalt Öffentlichen Rechts, which is the institution, so to say, like BVG, that would take care of the socialized flats, so that we are there when this socialized, instead of oh, now we need migrants, we are already there, and we would know ideally how to do our thing. So those were the thoughts behind it, and then after we realized it was not a matter of representation, we also start gathering like previous problems or negative experiences that we had in other groups, but also the bad things, in our opinion, that were happening within Deutsche Wohnenteignen, because Deutsche Wohnenteignen exists much before Right2TheCity for all. And one of the things that for us was important, very important from the beginning, was to create a warm, welcoming culture. That you come to the plena, to the meetings, to the assemblies, and instead of like always the same people being the facilitators and talking a lot, that you create somehow a space where everybody feels okay to talking since the first day. And that is also local, that is also like not, that you feel an outsider from the minute zero. So welcoming culture was very important for us. Small inputs, if any, so that people can start talking immediately. What are their issues, what they want to do, what their experience, what is their knowledge, what is their issues, questions, etc. That's one. For us was also important internal care as collective responsibility and part of the political praxis. So to take care of how we talk to each other, to take care of is everybody feeling okay? Is there burnout? Are you understanding everything? Do you feel uncomfortable with anything? But also a space of learning, because like I said before, even though we work in English, English is not the mother tongue, so sometimes you can use a word that should not be used anymore, but you don't know because it's not your mother tongue. So that people feel safe to learn, but also to make mistakes and then learn again. The third thing was we were totally against gatekeeping and hierarchies related to how experienced you are or unexperienced you are, which means facilitation is something that we really encourage that people start doing from the minute they enjoy the group. Holding speeches in big demonstrations. You can join the group today, and tomorrow you can do the big speech in Nuntalba, even though you are in the group for 24 hours. So it doesn't look like you have like this leadership figure, Che Guevara message, idol that everybody looks up to and follow, but everybody is important and everybody should be a star on the group. Joy as an ever-present element is number 5, I think. I lost count. Being non-judgmental over people's time availability. So, you know, like I had the feeling in my previous groups that if you couldn't come to a meeting for 2 months in a row because of work, because, I don't know, because you were sad or whatever, then you had a hard time coming back in the group and being accepted because you were not a disciplined comrade and you didn't show up. But, you know, life is concrete and sometimes very hard. So we make sure that people come when they can and they always feel welcome. And of course, the last thing that makes our life easy, I think everybody's life easy in groups like that, is that we have concrete demands. For example, scandalizing the lack of democratic rights and voting rights, and now supporting the election campaign with canvassing, door knocking, flyering, cheerleading, etc., etc. So, let me check the time. I have 6 minutes remaining. How our meetings look like now. We have 2 meetings per month, every second Wednesday. And the meeting structures are focused on those who just arrived and not for insiders. So we have half an hour prior where we explain the whole structure. But then we have an agenda that, first of all, has a mystica. And a mystica is a tradition of the landless workers movement from Brazil. Is a movement that exists since 40 years and fights for agrarian reform. And they say that before every action of the group, whether it is a normal meeting or if they are occupying a piece of land with guns, they always sing and pray before every action. And this is to kind of set a mood of like creating the idea of unity and of affection. So we started since June. The template that we are using now was created in June. So we start with a mystica. Anyone can participate in the mystica. It can be a song, can be a poem, can be in your mother tongue, can be in a tongue that you don't speak. It can be an image that you can talk about. So we have more or less 5 minutes for that. Then we have an icebreaker, if it's online, in breakout rooms with a specific question that the facilitators prepare. Or it can be a collective dance in your living room, everybody dancing together. We created a Right2TheCity playlist, so you have this moment of breaking the ice. Then we have the task match. Before the task match, it used to be the reports from our task forces, but the reports were kind of boring, could be long, people were lost, and then we started thinking of a Tinder, like you see a picture and like, I can't have that. So it's very like fast that you say like, we need someone to paste placata in Treptow the day 3rd, and then like bam, 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 and people say what they want to do. And then we have actuelles, the stuff, like burning stuff, or more a political discussion of decisions that had to be made, like in the long term. Start imagining strategy. This is a more hard exercise for those of us who are not so experienced. It's like visualizing horizon for a problem, but it's also very nice and necessary. And then we have the closing, which is like a concrete wrap-up and the preparation of the next meeting. Who facilitates, who will take the note, who will prepare the mystica. So with this template that we have now, we are having shorter and shorter, but more productive meetings, which is great. You go home early, or you have dinner early, or you can do whatever you like earlier than planned. This is to talk about the structure, the concrete structures of the meeting. And now that we are closer to the election, the 26th of September, where we're going to see if the expropriation is voted yeah or the nein. There's a lot of stuff to do if we do win, which means then pushing that the law will going to be debated, discussed, and passed through, and the participation of non-German voices there. But also there's a lot of stuff that can be done if we don't win, which is, first of all, keeping the structure together, that it doesn't dilutes in this loss, which would be, we're going to win, but would be very, very painful. And for me personally, and I wanted to share with you guys now, because we've been talking about it in Right2TheCity and in some task forces, is the interest in building structures of participatory budgeting in the communal ebene. Following experience that were done in Brazil, that we've been researching, but also in Portugal, they started doing it. And it's a political participation for people who live in a city that it's not regarded to voting rights. Because even a referendum is a lot of the motivation to participate in this is regarded like, can I vote or not? So a lot of the work on the Right2TheCity was to be like, hey, we all cannot vote, but still we can like push and be present. But the participatory budgeting could be possible to do it in your kids' ebene without voting rights at all. So we're starting research on that. We'll keep you all posted as soon as we have more. We have been having interviews with people who did those projects in the northeast of Brazil and so on. So those are the horizons. If we win, we have a lot to do. If we don't win, we also have a lot to do. And the participatory budgeting is something that we now like kind of like trying to form in a more concrete way. And my personal motivation to be in the group is, I don't believe we have a Shakira somewhere. My personal motivation is to make exactly political participation possible for more and more people who never thought they could be politically active in the city, outside like their groups that are used to be active, like not only to be politically active in the Brazilian community where I was before, or not only that you will be active in the queer community where you felt safe before, but to create a space where big politics are also safe and welcoming for queer folks, for people with disabilities, for women and so on. So this is my biggest motivation. To be honest, I'm not the smartest person for like strategy and for looking in big goals, but I am good at talking and being happy with Shakira. So this is my motivation to keep like, like to keep everybody like kind of in love with each other. Yeah, this would be from me now, and I would actually love to hear from you guys the experiences that you have been having since you arrived in the political organizations or initiatives that you took part at. Yep, that's it.